On today's episode, we have our Week 9 wide receiver rankings. I've ranked the top 45 wide receivers, and I've broken them into tiers. Keegan and Aidan have gone through each of my tiers, and they've highlighted a few guys they're starting, and a few of the guys they're sitting in the tier. But, and if you've watched our running back show, we have a new wrinkle. During the course of this episode, Keegan and Aidan will hear this quote from Hot Tub Time Machine.
Uh-oh, look what Daddy did.
And when they hear this noise, it means they will debate a start-sit decision of my choosing. Start-sit decision of my choosing. Keegan and Aidan will each get 1 minute to make their case. At the 1 minute mark, they will hear this noise.
We do not care.
After each debate, I will award a winner. It is best 2 out of 3. I've got 3 start-sit decisions here. The winner of this episode gets to choose which type of milk the loser will have to drink on Sunday during Milk Was a Bad Choice. And they will get to choose the start-sit debates next week. All right, so I will not always be leading these start-sit decisions. With 4 teams on a bye this week, means the mean team needs us, right, fellas? You guys ready to go?
Let's rock.
Yep.
We ready to grip and rip this thing? All right, let's pull up the rankings here. So we just went through the running backs. Receivers they're just so much more pleasant. I'm going to leave it at that. I have the top 2 guys in a tier of their own this week. I've got at wide receiver 1 this week, JaMarr Chase, and at wide receiver 2 this week, Tyreek Hill. I have JaMarr Chase 1 because he's the number 1 in usage and the number 1 in production over the past month. Joe Burrow looks healthy, and I don't really believe in the cornerbacks in that Buffalo secondary. I think JaMarr Chase is going to eat. Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill, so he's always going to be number 1 unless I get a little crazy and move JaMarr Chase ahead of him. The next tier that I've got here is wide receivers 3 through 6. I've got CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Stefon Diggs, and Keenan Allen. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 24 in usage and wide receiver 6 in production over the past month. He's got a great game script environment and a plus matchup versus a Eagles secondary surrendering the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers over the past month. I will pause here. What do you guys think about my top 6 wide receivers so far?
No thoughts. Except for Keenan Allen being number 6. It's going to be tough.
Oh.
No bias. No bias. No bias on the show.
No bias
on the show.
No bias.
Even matchups factored in, I'd probably still go AJ above CD. I just think his role and usage is it's elite right now. It's truly elite. Jaylen is targeting him what feels like every other play. CD has obviously the advantage matchup here. It is an absolute just donation bank. Come take it whenever you need it. With that Philly secondary right now, it is just free pick 'em. But AJ Brown, dog, absolute dog.
Okay, I love it. I felt weird moving him down the ranks. He's just been dunking on regression. I'm not saying he's going to regress negatively, but it could happen against a pretty damn good Cowboys secondary. The next tier that I have here is a mini tier, and it's the weirdest tier ever because it's wide receiver 7, Jaylen Waddle, and wide receiver 8, Adam Thielen. Very different players. I've got Thielen
just like we drew it
I've got Thielen 2 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. He has the wide receiver 2 usage and the wide receiver 4 production over the past month. Indy just got torched by the Saints receiving core last week. I think he should be ranked in the top 10 weekly. I don't know how you could not have him in the top 10. Any thoughts on Thielen and Waddle? Waddle's been on a tear lately. They've kind of phased out the run game since Achane got hurt, and it's just been Waddle City. Any thoughts on those two?
No, I think they're fine there. Yeah, I'm just trying to comprehend them being here.
Yeah, it's
Adam Thielen every week. It just I feel I'm gonna wake up from a dream and it's no, the Thielen thing wasn't real. That was a total gimmick. But no, it's
those TikToks I always send you guys about it's the random
player.
Just one-off player takes. We're gonna get those in about
that's gonna be
10 years. It's gonna be people forget about Adam Thielen's 1 year and
he was special.
Wide receiver 1 season in Carolina.
He was special. The next tier I have here is just wide receivers that should be performing better but aren't because of weird circumstances. Wide receiver 9, Chris Olave. Wide receiver 10, Garrett Wilson. Wide receiver 11, Devante Adams. Wide receiver 12, Devonta Smith. Wide receiver 13, Cooper Kupp. Wide receiver 14, Puka Nacua. Big differences here. I've got Olave 5 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. I've got Garrett Wilson 3 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. Chris Olave, wide receiver 13 in usage, wide receiver 33 in production over the past month. He had a walk-in TD, hit him in the face last week. He's got a matchup against the Bears secondary. They got torn apart by the Chargers. If there was ever a week for regression to hit it, it feels like this one. And then Garrett Wilson, not many people are talking about it. Insane usage, wide receiver 8 usage, wide receiver 23 production. We're going to expect that when Zach Wilson's his quarterback. It might not be pretty, but at least Wilson is committing to really feeding Garrett Wilson a healthy dose of targets. You know, these funny having these guys, back to back, considering the debate.
Uh-oh, look what Daddy did. Uh-oh, look what Daddy did.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I know what this is going to be.
Uh-oh. Aidan, I want you to debate why you should start Chris Olave against the Bears secondary. And Keegan, I want you to debate why we should start Garrett Wilson this week.
Oh, no.
Now we're talking, Shaun.
He's got home field advantage. He has to go first. He's going first.
He's going first. He's going first. All right.
For sure.
This is fun. This is a good one. All right, Keegan, I'm starting you off in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Garrett Wilson, we'll start off with this. He has a league-high 46% of first read targets from Zach Wilson. We're looking at Garrett Wilson early and often. He scored at least 17 fantasy points in 2 straight games, while reaching 15 points in 3 of his last 4. His down games are about 8 to 10 points, so the floor is pretty reliable. You're talking about Zach Wilson's favorite target here against the defense that has given up the most receiving yards on the season with the Los Angeles Chargers. If they want to keep up with him, they're going to have to pass the ball. I feel like this is a great opportunity for Garrett Wilson. Chargers have also allowed the 3rd most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. That includes this, like I mentioned, the 1st most yards to the position. So I think there's a good chance the Jets get right in the passing game this week, and Garrett Wilson absolutely hits home with a touchdown and at least 8
We do not care.
Boom.
We do not care.
All right.
Oh, we do care. We do care here.
We do not care.
Aidan,
I hate that you have that power.
You've got 3 seconds here. 3, 2, 1. Why are we starting Olave over the Bears secondary?
For starters, this is all about matchup. This is a bad defense. No way around it. Just got absolutely torched on Sunday night against Justin Herbert. Dude had 300 yards and 3 tutties. Not to mention, Derek Carr's on a bit of a heater himself. 3 games in a row passing over 300 yards. So don't look now, but that shoulder is starting to heal, and he's getting healthy. Chris Olave, double-digit targets in 3 games in a row. 2 games. The other one was 9. I cheated. And has only scored once this year. I watched the touchdown in it. I watched that ball hit his face like 6 different times this week and couldn't believe my eyes. Regression is the name. That's our game. This guy is so due for an explosive game. Absolute target hog in that offense, and a Bears team that just really doesn't like playing football, or at least not playing it well. So
we do not care.
Dude, you had home field advantage too. You had just as much of an advantage
We
talking
do not
about your
care.
defense.
They're
right.
ass.
They're
ass.
Keegan had all of the stats, hit all of them, but then Aidan said terrible defense. He then said they don't even want to play football. Then he made a rhyme, and then he said regression is the name.
No.
He said regression is the name.
This is
Congratulations,
crap.
Aidan. Congratulations,
Bro,
winning round one.
Are the Chris Olave expected fantasy points in the room with us right now? Dude, this is bullshit.
I'm starting Olave. All right. I guess the 2 last guys in this tier that I have neck and neck, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I've got Kupp minus 4 spots, Puka up 1.
Man, that was huge. That was a big one.
I just think both of these guys need to be right next to each other. Matthew Stafford might play. He might not. He didn't practice. He's definitely not going on IR. So we're not Jover quite yet, but it's going to be cold. His thumbs hurt. So I don't know. You still can't bench those guys. Anyone that doubts
It
either of them,
sucks.
have fun with that.
It sucks.
Next tier that I've got here is wide receivers 15 through wide receivers 20. I've got Nico Collins here at wide receiver 15, 2 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. DK Metcalf, wide receiver 16. I've got Diontae Johnson 8 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings at wide receiver 17. I've got Mike Evans, wide receiver 18, -7. And I've got Chris Godwin, wide receiver 19, 10 spots up, and Michael Pittman at wide receiver 20. I think the major call out here, Diontae Johnson at wide receiver 17, wide receiver 10 usage, wide receiver 19 in production. Is it going to be Mitch? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett? I don't care. He's back to just being an alpha in this offense. And then Mike Evans versus Chris Godwin here. So Mike Evans has wide receiver 20 usage and wide receiver 25 production over the past month. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 15 usage, wide receiver 18 in production over the past month. I think defenses have keyed in on how to stop Mike Evans. Mike Evans is always a deep touchdown threat away, and that's why he's ranked 1 spot ahead of Chris Godwin in my rankings. But come on, Godwin's outproducing him right now. I think we have to take a look at Godwin, how much more explosive he looks. 2 years now, pretty much fully removed from the ACL. I think they're just neck and neck, and I don't think rankings have caught up yet. So I'll pause here at this tier. Any thoughts? Any guys you like? Any guys you don't like?
I'd personally go with Godwin. He's outscored him in 3 of the last 4 games. I think to your point, it's kind of flipping that way towards Godwin being kind of at least the higher volume play. Again, 3 of those 4 games too, he's out-targeted him. Mike Evans is always the home run threat, which is, I wouldn't say scary, but which gives him a unique, differentiator where he can catch 2 balls and outscore Chris Godwin, who reels in 8. But I think Godwin is developing more rapport with Baker Mayfield. So that's personally my cup of tea between those 2 guys. But yeah, I think having them next to each other is pretty fair. I would just flop them.
I really like Nico and Diontae in this range. The aggressive Diontae ranking for you, Shaun, makes kind of a lot of sense to me there. I definitely think just, his role in PPR is just so sound. I mean, he's definitely like a demand targets type of player, and I really like his opportunity in this matchup. And Nico Collins as well. I mean, since week 6, the Bucs have allowed 6 different receivers to score at least 11 PPR points against them. Tampa Bay also sets up really well against the run game. Pierce a little banged up, Singletary's, Singletary. So if the run game struggles, the Texans could have to lean a bit more on their passing attack. And, Nico Collins is still averaging like 15.5 points a game right now. And, last week, 3 different Buffalo wide receivers essentially ate against the Buccaneers. So this is a very fantasy-friendly matchup for Nico. And Diontae, I think he might be back. I don't care who the quarterback is, but I mean, he's 14 targets in week 8.
20 targets.
14 targets.
The past 2 weeks, and then, I think, or more. He might have more, actually.
8 catches for 85 yards. I mean, he's at least scored 13 PPR points his last 2 healthy games.
And his quarterback completely missed him in the end zone. We're so bad.
Oh, yeah.
So bad.
That one was so bad. That was like a full, 3,
that was
4
egregious.
Yeah, it was bad. The next range of guys that I've got here, I can't believe he made it this high, but I've got Terry McLaurin 21. T. Higgins is the guy that I'm questioning why I'm so high, but T. Higgins, wide receiver 22. I kid. He looked good last week. We'll give him that. DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver 23. Amari Cooper, wide receiver 24. Zay Flowers, wide receiver 25. I got him -6 spots below expert consensus rankings. DJ Moore, wide receiver 26, -6 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. Jakobi Meyers, wide receiver 27. Jordan Addison, wide receiver 28. I've got him up 5 spots. Gabe Davis, wide receiver 29, and George Pickens, wide receiver 30. So that's a pretty big tier. It probably has a break, right? I mean, I think that's realistic, but just for the sake of kind of lumping these guys together in this category, in this phase, guys that I'm high on. I'm up on Jordan Addison. I understand this new quarterback situation sucks, but let's not bury the kid yet. He's got wide receiver 12 usage, and he's the wide receiver 7 in production over the past month. He's the wide receiver 2 in fantasy over the last 2 to 3 weeks. I understand it's not ideal, but I'm not bumping this guy into the 30s quite yet. Let's give him a week to defend his standing here in fantasy circles. And then Zay Flowers has wide receiver 32 usage, and he has wide receiver 35 production over the past month. He's been excellent, but he's not a top 20 wide receiver weekly, and I don't think he should be there. So I think wide receiver 25 is a good spot for him to be. And DJ Moore, and wide receiver 31 usage, wide receiver 8 in production over the past month, that helped going nuclear against the Commanders. Until Justin Fields comes back, it's hard for me to get super ambitious with my DJ Moore ranking. So this is good. You got some fun players in this range. You got some guys who had big weeks. So I like this range.
Uh-oh, look what Daddy did.
Oh
Uh-oh, look what Daddy
Makes me
did.
laugh every time.
no!
His face every time. He acts like he doesn't know what's coming.
Oh, it shocks
know.
me. It surprised me. All right, Aidan. I want you to tell me why I should start DJ Moore in fantasy this week. And Keegan, I want you to tell me why I should start Gabe Davis in fantasy this week.
No, not Gabe.
Aidan, you're gonna go first for DJ Moore. I'm gonna put you on the clock starting now.
So DJ Moore, the ultimate case at the end of the day is volume, 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 and an absolute alpha in that offense. Darnell Mooney is a wide receiver 3 at best, and DJ Moore is going to continue having a pretty safe floor in fantasy. His home run hitting kind of performances that we saw with Justin Fields are not very likely, but his last 3 games, he still has 8 targets, 9 targets, 6 targets, averaging just over about 12 points per game. The Saints secondary is quite good, but again, I'm really just banking on volume here with DJ Moore. The guy hasn't had Justin Fields in about 3 weeks now and is still 5th in the NFL in receiving yards. At the end of the day, this guy in his career has just produced with crap quarterbacks, and that's nothing against Teabag, but Justin Fields is much better for his outcome, and I really just don't think it matters. DJ
We do not care.
volume focused.
We do not
All
care.
right, Keegan, you have got you are on the clock in 3, 2, 1.
All right, so we're back riding the Gabe Davis roller coaster, and right now we're in the middle of a touchdown loop-de-loop. I expect the streak to continue again for Gabe Davis against the Bengals. So far, 2 players have racked up 100 receiving yards in a game against Cincinnati this season. Bengals have also allowed 9 different players to catch a touchdown pass against them this season. Gabe Davis is coming off one of his best games last week. He's also accumulated 275 yards receiving on 22 catches, on 32 targets with 3 touchdowns in his past 5 games. I mean, the guy is hot, minus a couple down weeks. He had a 4-week stretch where he scored every week, took 2 weeks off. Now he's back to scoring again last week. So we're basically expecting another 4-week stretch of Gabe Davis boom weeks. Like I said, coming off his best game of the week. And this total is almost 50 points on the weekend. So I feel like it's got to be a pass-happy matchup for Josh Allen to keep up with a hot and streaking Bengals team that has a healthy Joe
We do
Burrow.
not care.
You do care.
We do not care.
I care. I care, Keegan.
I was gonna give it to Aidan. I really was. I was ready to give it to him, but then you said 51-point total, and then you said Josh Allen, and then I remembered Aidan said Teabag, and the fact that DJ Moore's produced with crap quarterbacks his whole career. Just factually not true. Last year was horrendous. So I am going to give this
No, it
one.
wasn't. No, it wasn't.
And not until Darnold, but with Baker, he couldn't produce anything. I am going to give this
He was
one.
He was a fantasy playoff winner.
I'm going to give this one to Keegan.
I can't believe
I
I
actually did have some notes for. I had some notes for Gabe Davis ready to go.
Yeah,
so
and he,
I'm
did
glad
not.
I did get to talk
I had
to
DJ
him.
Moore as a fade this week. I had DJ Moore as a fade. I was like, here we go. Here we go.
I listed
Wait, Shaun,
10
before we
guys,
move on to the
10 guys.
next-
Yeah, you give me some thoughts on this tier because I listed off a bunch.
Before we go to it, I just want to talk about my guy, T. Higgins. I feel like this is the week that he gets back to his normal self. Everything I just said
T's your
about
guy.
Gabe Davis in this shootout environment, 50 points, 51 points. I'm not sure where it's at right now, and it opened around like 49.5. But Bills have allowed 8 receivers to score at least 11 PPR points in the last 4 games. They've also allowed 3 different pairs of receivers to hit 11 points per game. So Chase and Higgins should both be able to eat in this matchup. He looked a bit more like himself with 5 catches for 69 yards and 6 targets, but he just didn't score a touchdown again. Here's a tweet from Scott Barrett I wanted to share with you guys. This is a list of wide receivers, and the stat is basically percentage of targets between wide receivers and tight end that were deemed open or wide open on balls thrown more than 5 yards downfield. JaMarr Chase, 50% targets that are open or wide open at number 1. Brandin Ayuk, 50%, 2, so technically tied for 1. Tyreek Hill, 47.4% of his targets down 5 yards or more were deemed open or wide open. At number 51 is T. Higgins and only 18.8% of his targets down 5 yards or more were deemed that he was open or wide open. I don't know if that's a separation stat or if it's a bad throw stat. I'm choosing it to be a poor throw selection stat, and I'm riding with T. Higgins this week and creating my own narrative.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps your argument.
It doesn't. But that's the best thing about stats. You can make them for or against you, however you want to look at them.
I thought you were
Open
about
to
to be like, T.
interpretation.
Higgins, number 5. And I'd be like, whoa, that's interesting. You're like 51. I was like, wait, that's not where you want to be.
If anything, he just
It's just been a bad sled of games for him and the Bengals, so I'm expecting him to get hot this week and get back to business. I'm kind of excited for T. Higgins. I feel like it's coming. Also, I think Amari Cooper has a really good matchup this week.
He has a great
Does
matchup
against Arizona.
I like Terry too. Terry's sneaky heating up. Yeah,
Terry and the Commanders have a good matchup. I have some notes on Dotson, so I'll wait until we get into that range of receivers. I'm nervous about Jordan Addison, guys. I sold my first share of him this week in the Superflex League. I still have 2 more shares of Jordan Addison, but this week might be bad. I think this is a wait and see week for pass catchers other than TJ Hawkinson.
What is it? Jaren or Darren? Is it Jaren?
I think it's Jaren.
Jarrett.
Jaren. Right?
Jaren? Or I thought it was
There's
Jarrett.
zero.
I think there's an
Okay,
N.
Jaren.
I think there's an N.
I think it's Jaren. Yeah.
Hard hitting analysis.
I think
Somebody in the
it's
comments is gonna be like, don't you guys do your
I think
research?
it's Jaren.
Do you not
I look.
respect
I
the
understand.
BYU Cougars.
Addison's in danger, but let's not drop him into Marquise Brown land quite yet. Let's see him do it
But
for
they're
a week.
unrealized air yards. Come on.
Are they in the
They're
room with us?
unrealized, bro.
Are they in the
They're
room with
unrealized. You
us?
just need to realize them.
Anything else on this group of guys before we go on to the next tier?
No, I'm just staring down this next tier like I'm going to get shafted.
Wondering who you're gonna have to debate.
All right.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the next tier of guys here, I've got wide receiver 31, Josh Downs, wide receiver 32, Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 33, Marquise Brown, wide receiver 34, Drake London, who might not even play. He's day-to-day with a groin. I've got wide receiver 35, Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, 10 spots ahead of expert consensus rankings. Calling my shot a little bit with this one. Wide receiver 36, Christian Watson, wide receiver 37, Tank Dell, wide receiver 38, Josh Palmer. Big moves in terms of expert consensus rankings. It's just Pop Douglas. Wide receiver 42 usage, wide receiver 60 in production over the past month. Washington might have one of the worst defenses in the NFL right now, and Douglas might really be the only guy on the Patriots worth targeting out there on the field. Really fun dart throw this week. I have no idea if it's going to land, but I mean, like somebody's got to catch passes, right? So that's really my big riser in this range. I feel like there are a couple diamonds in the rough. It's hard to really get a thumbprint on who is going to do what. And
Uh-oh, look what Daddy did.
Oh, I'm nervous.
I'm nervous.
all right, this is for all the
This
marbles.
This is so
This
bad.
is for all the
Oh,
marbles.
God.
All right, Keegan, you have to tell me why I need to start Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas this week.
Oh, I was
Fucking
kinda
hell.
looking it
Aiden, you need to tell me why I need to start Christian Watson this
up.
week.
No.
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 Yep. Yep.
I'm drinking milk.
Nope, it's not
Okay.
happening. I'll give you
I'm drinking
1
milk.
minute here, all right? Aiden, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Keegan's going to go first. Keegan,
I'm dead. I'm a dead man.
you're not dead. I know you can believe in it. Summon it. All right, Keegan, here you go.
All right, so Pop Douglas, the case for him. Although he has Mac Jones throwing him the ball, the Washington Commanders have allowed the most fantasy points total on the season to opposing quarterbacks, and also 4th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position in fantasy football right now. Pop Douglas is going to be the lone viable wide receiver with Kendrick Bourne ACL and Devontae Parker banged up. Juju is washed. He also led the New England receivers last week with 41 snaps, had 5 catches on 7 targets. He only got 25 yards, but now he has a really good matchup. Sorry, I said number 4. They're the number 2 most fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, the Washington Commanders. They have no Montez Sweat. They have no Chase Young for pass rushing. Their cornerbacks are Swiss cheese. This is a fantastic matchup for the New England passing game this week. And if anybody's going to hit home, it's got to be Demario Douglas.
We do not care.
Yeah, I don't really care about Pop Douglas, but I made my best case.
Aiden, you ready?
Uh-huh.
All right, you're on the clock.
Here I am, Christian Watson. Let me tell you about a guy that can break big plays, baby. If you're looking for explosive, absolute home run hitting guys, Christian Watson's your guy. Not to mention, he is quietly coming off one of his better games of the year in terms of targets. 8 targets, best on the season. Jordan Love is looking his way, and he believes in his young second-year wide receiver. Rams also coming off a game in which they gave up quite a few points to none other than CeeDee Lamb. They do rank quite well overall in the season in terms of giving up yards to the wide receiver position, but I think a lot of that is buoyed from some early production. This defense is gettable. I think the Packers are due for a big positive regression game, and Christian Watson is going to have one of his signature home run plays. So slot him in the lineup with confidence, 10 out of 10 play.
We do not care.
What sucks is Shaun loves Christian Watson, and all he needed to hear was home run play, and you could have said nothing for a minute, and you probably still have a better argument.
Congratulations, Aidan.
Yeah. Bullshit. He didn't even try. He said he was coming off his best game in terms of targets.
He had 8 he said 8 targets and home run. He said 8, well, because I thought he was going to say his best game, and it was like 30 yards, which was cracking me up. But they're home cooking, baby. Home cooking. Aidan, you are the champ.
It is the best game in terms of targets. I didn't lie, but I kind of misled the start of it. And then I said, he only caught 3 of those. I didn't say how many he caught.
Yeah, Jordan Love might be really bad. Okay, so this tier here, I went from wide receivers 31 to wide receiver 38. Any comments on these guys before we go to the kind of the last tier that we have here and get out of here?
Yeah, give me Josh Downs back in my lineup again, baby. Ride the hot hand. 13.1 PPR points in 4 games in a row and 5 of his last 6. I'm riding Downs again. 2 touchdowns in his past 3 games and 4 games in a row with at least 6 targets. Carolina, I pulled this stat last week against zone for some wide receivers, but again, opportunity for Josh Downs. Carolina's running zone coverage 83% of the time, 3rd highest in the NFL. Downs leading the Colts receivers in yards against zone. In weeks 6 through 8, with Minshew starting, Josh Downs is 19.3% target share, 21.8% of the first read target shares. He's also first in the team in yards per route run, minimum of 10 routes, and 24.5% of the air yard share in that span. He's also averaging about 73 yards a game. So give me Josh Downs back in my starting lineup again.
Wow, you were ready for Josh Downs.
I might need to get
that
him
wasn't just
above.
off the dome.
I might need to get him above Jordan Addison. I'm feeling a little peckish about Jordan Addison now. Aidan, any other guys in this range? Or was it really? I'm not feeling compelled.
Is it compelling, Keegan?
Is it compelling, Keegan? No. This range is fine for me.
Before we get out of here, wide receivers 39 through 45. Wide receiver 39, Rashee Rice. Wide receiver 40, Michael Thomas. 41, Rashid Shaheed. Wide receiver 42, Jahan Dotson. Wide receiver 43, Romeo Doubs. Wide receiver 44, Brandin Cooks. Wide receiver 45, JSN. My big faller here is Rashee Rice. Wide receiver 56 in usage, wide receiver 31 in production over the past month. I love that Rice has gotten more consistent snaps, but it doesn't change the fact that he's a TD-dependent play. It's really hard to rank him above other people and be super confident about it. So if he starts to see more usage, it'll be an easy weekly play. He's a pretty efficient and talented player, but until then, he is a total dirt throw, in my opinion.
Out of this tier, I'm going to put my neck on the line and maybe some substantial chunky milk. And I'm going to call a shot here and say this is the week that Jahan Dotson takes the step up and goes back to the normal Jahan Dotson we're expecting. I mean, coming off his best game of the season easily, but everything I just said about Pop Douglas a moment ago, no sweat, no young, defense is Swiss cheese. New England's going to score points, and that means Sam Howell and the Hive are going to have to pass, and stay in the game. New England's still a pretty formidable defense, but they're going to have to keep up with them if they want to win the game. Dotson's coming out of an 8-catch, 10-target game, 108 yards, and a touchdown outing against Philly. Curtis Samuel a little banged up. Last week, 3 Dolphins wide receivers scored a touchdown. 3. Not 2, not 1. 3 different Dolphins wide receivers, including the likes of Cedric Wilson, scored a touchdown against New England. I think this is going to be a week where we're like, oh, yeah, Jahan Dotson is definitely back. Jahan Dotson is a thing again. And, dude, if they throw the ball 40 times or 50 times again, how do you not hit home with that?
That's fair.
I'm pretty in.
I just want to flag how hilarious Michael Thomas's stat lines are this year.
He's a
It's
tight
like
end.
the most consistently mid thing of all time, dude. He has no less than 42 yards, no more than 68, no less than 3 catches, no more than 7. It's like you will hang out at 10 points and you will like it, and that's all I can give you, dude. 8 weeks in a row, it's just like you know exactly what he's gonna give you. Maybe he catches a touchdown and gets you to 15, but dude, yeah, it's Michael Thomas is dust. Slant boy is no more. But yeah,
He's like a tight end.
I would personally, I would bet on Shaheed hitting home before Christian Watson if we're being quite honest here, man. That guy, he's been doing it all year. Christian Watson, dude, the guy gets injured every other game. So give me Shaheed.
It's why I put them right next to each other. Thomas has more usage, but Shaheed's just electric. But that's it. That's wide receivers for week 9. Aidan, our champion. Anything you got to say to listeners before we jump?
That's such bullshit.
You won running
I'm
backs.
back, baby.
You can't win them all.
There'll be no clipping me talking about the Packers like that. Like that'll never happen again. That was a one-off. So like for the people out there,
that
like
TikTok is going to hit.
no,
We got to make it.
It's always been bear down forever. 2-6, and I'm still here, 10 toes down. So no, this is not
Standing on business.
Yeah, this does not reflect my views.
No bias in this
Oh,
podcast.
jeez. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Uh-oh, look what Daddy did.
And until next time.